Hmm. Oh, that fresh Farmlands, Map 8 Farmlands air. What's up, everyone? I'm Joshiek. Joshiek. What's up? And today, we're going to take a behind-the-scenes look at the newest Farmlands map coming to CV8. That's right, you guys are going to get to see behind the scenes of how we did everything here. And we'll conduct some interviews, see if we can catch some nubs in their natural environments, get some great views, and get an inside look into the process of making this huge Farmlands continent. So without further ado, let's get going. Alright, so hello, I'm here with Vic Torres. Vic?
Hello.
Hello. We're just going to do a little brief interview with Vic here, see if we can find out some juicy behind the scenes details of the Farmlands. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions, Vic, so hopefully it won't, I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time, otherwise this is going to be a very long video. But I'm just gonna start with just like a basic question. So so the first one is just how did this project come about?
All right. Goodness. Well, I remember when we first heard about CV8 that that we were going to start working on a new map. There was a big long list from the essays, and under the farmland section, it only mentioned that they were going to spruce up the spawn area, and those were our marching orders to start. That there wasn't going to be much change in the farmlands at all. And then I remember one day, it was like a weekend, it was like everyone was in good spirits. There'd been a promotion that day. It was, there was a decent crowd around. Everyone was having fun. And then later on, Wally kind of pokes me on Discord about, hey, Vic, and that tone, and you already know something's coming. And just, how much do you like terraforming? And then I'm like, oh boy, the CV8 plans are already changing, aren't they? And then so I'm intrigued. I do like terraforming, so I poke him for some more detail, and he goes about how I want to remake the entire Farmlands this upcoming map.
Dun dun dun.
As a giant continent. All of the different farms on one big piece of land. And then I go, oh, you weren't kidding when you said I might be a bit surprised by the scope of the hay. So
Yeah, just a little bit, too much.
Yeah, but I was listening. He's done stuff like this before, and it's turned out great. So I'm like, okay, I'm on board. Let's see how this goes. Let's see how insane you are, how insane maybe I am for coming along with it. But I will admit, as he spoke and started to lay out his plans, it's like, okay, wait, no, this is clicking. And a kind of an image formed in my head of what the new Farmlands could look like. I remember I sketched it out in paint.net as I was kind of laying it all out in my mind, and I sent him that, and it kind of cracks me up now looking back about, oh my goodness, I basically was writing up a digital napkin note.
Yeah, like a little napkin sketch pitch, right? Yeah.
And then I just remember this whole idea kind of coalesced in my head along with his initial plans of just this continent with it's kind of crescent shaped with a mountain range running along its center. And then, kind of from a point to point in that crescent shape. And then it causes this natural rain shadow, and the different farms of the farmlands are aligned along, the more arid farms on one side of the rain shadow and the more lush farms on the other. Right. And trying to arrange things that they made some sort of geographic sense. I imagine that a real life expert in biomes and ecology and geographical terrain would have some words with me. I don't imagine
Like,
it's
what is
very accurate.
this?
Yeah. But for Minecraft, I'd like to think it does a nice job of flowing from one farm to the other. And this is a little ahead of your initial question, but I think like the execution ended up really reflecting that. So,
Oh yeah,
like,
no, it's beautiful. The farmland it really did, everything just kind of pieced together in the end, and the blending just perfect. Like, looks beautiful.
yeah, no, I completely agree. Everybody just like knocked it out of the park. It came out so gorgeous. It's so neat too. We've never built like an entire world starting from literally one block and then just going from there. It was really neat. It was quite the honor to be that person who placed that one block and then got to expand it out and start to shape it. And then eventually it just started to go from this big stone slab, like really massive big stone slab. We're talking 160 million square blocks, I want to say, is what I started
Good
with.
Lord, yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, it just somehow after a while started to become land and sea. It was really just an amazing experience. One of the coolest things I have ever done on the staff team, I've ever done on Cubeville.
It's definitely paid off. It doesn't, everything just looks so good. Like, it's awesome having it be like a whole continent. Like, that just kind of blew me away when we were looking at we're like, hey, we're gonna do this new farmlands, and they showed us your diagram, like the little like the little what's it called? What are they called? I can't remember what the word is for them.
Well, there's the initial
diorama.
The mock-up, yes.
Yeah.
The 3D mock-up that came later.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh wow, this is gonna be like it's gonna be a whole thing. Like, but it pulled together, and it looks great.
Yeah, no, thank you. That mock-up, it pulled its weight because obviously after a certain point you have to turn your baby over to other people, and you have to be able to demonstrate convey what's in your head as far as the image to them, and it was just kind of a happy accident. I just had a lot of waiting around to do while the essays were figuring out perms for me. Like, it's not a big precedent on Cubeville for senior mods to just be handed perms to a lot of powerful like terraforming plugins like Voxel Sniper, GoBrush, etc. So like there was some a little bit of downtime, and I needed something to do, so I just built that little mock-up. And it's really funny seeing the scale of it too, about how it's about 125 by 125 blocks, 125 blocks square. So it's about the size of Taika PvP Arena. And then you look at the images of it versus the entire Skylands Farmlands, but just the the full size real Farmlands, and that is 2,000 by 2,000. So
Lord, yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny seeing just the difference. But
it mostly kept its shape. Shape.
Yeah. Plus, it was just so neat too about seeing the different about this is the scale we're used to working on it at CV, and this is the new scale.
Yeah, it's just honestly
this is the challenge.
Looking back on this, it's honestly amazing that we managed to get this done in time. We did feel like we were working on it forever, but like it was like a labor of love for sure. Out of like, I think everything that was done, this was definitely like the one that was like everyone kind of pulled together to do like a really passionate, put a lot of work into their farms, kind of like this was a big project.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It was a labor of love for a lot of people too, and I absolutely adore that. Like you look at the jungle and you see Lissa. You look at the mycelium farm and you see Mama Checkers. You look at the spruce farm and you see MP. Like, just everywhere you go, there's so much just like love poured into it, and I absolutely adore that. It was so neat to get to literally lay the foundations for like people to do that. It was just mind-blowing.
I can't wait for people to see the horrible guardian, the guardian farm of just nightmare.
Okay, but that thing is, I thought that it would just be a standard guardian temple. Whoever went in and did that, and the guardians would come out. They're going to be mythic mobs. They're not in as of this recording, but they're going to be mythic mobs. They're going to spawn in, and I thought they would just come out of a really vanilla looking temple, and then instead nope, you've decided to do Poseidon's underworld of horrors, and I adore it. I think the nubs are really going to get a kick out of it too. It's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
That kind of otherworldly dark fantasy.
I think that's what's cool about a lot of the farms is that people we took what the farms normally look like or what the biome looks like in the actual game and kind of elevated it and kind of got more creative with it than the game does itself, which I think is something that the players are going to really kind of enjoy exploring, because it's basically like we put in new biomes for the game that are already there, but we like heightened it and really like kind of made it its own thing and made it really special. And I think that's going to be one thing that's going to be really cool about the ice, the spruce, the coral, the terracotta, and I think what was the other one? The cherry blossom one's a little different too, a little bit different than it normally is. And those biomes are all going to be, I think, really cool to explore because they're, like I said, like they're elevated, they're changed, they're not just kind of like the default biome. And also with some of them, like they don't have to be like, I know that, you know, for one example, like sand and stuff like that, like that you want that to be as much sand as possible because that's going to be like a really, really, really heavily farmed farm. So, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of leeway, I'd say, with some of those farms because they're just like, we need this to be as farmable as possible. But like ones that are kind of lesser, especially guardians, with the ice stuff, like you can do a lot more, I think, creatively with those, and we really kind of went with that. So I think that's one thing I think you're going to enjoy.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. I love that, like a lot of people brought in that little fantastical element. I love that if you look at around the North Shore where like there is no sussy biome, you know, that was complete creative freedom. And I love that Wally pulled in a little lore of the archaeological exploration.
Oh, it's near so the good. Spawn area. It's so good. I love those dinosaurs.
I know, yes. And then Mir's like dock, and that leads into the, you know, your underwater farms. You brought up a good point too.
No, go ahead.
But about this, I was just gonna say about the sand farm. That's a really good point too. About we tried to have the sizes of the farms roughly reflect the needs of like the players. You know, like sand was a perfect example. The sand farm was intentionally made, you know, quite large. The you know, terracotta, oak and birch, those were both just like farms that like we really kind of pushed like to be large. Spruce is another good example in gravel.
Yeah.
And then there were some, you know, aesthetic tweaks to that. I remember the acacia farm just kept expanding because it just looked so good as the blending biome for that, you know, transition into the arid part of the continent. But that's okay. Acacia wood is awesome. Hopefully the nubs can build some cool stuff with acacia because there's a lot of it.
Yeah, there is.
But yeah, no, for the most part, like you know, just having it like look great and also having it be like meet the citizens' needs were like kind of the two major focal points there in designing it. That and a little bit just also having fun. Like we'd never, like I'd said before, we never got to design our own world. It was like, you know, let's have fun with it. Let's cook.
Right.
And then like there was you know, mycelium farm is like a completely, like, how do you really have that flow into anything? It's kind of its own thing, so it got to be its own island. So
all right, so we'll move on to another question then, since we just, you know, I don't want to if I want to say, like, I feel like both of us could talk about the farmlands forever, but we don't have that much time, unfortunately. So let's go to the next question. Would be one I had written down for you Vic, specifically, was what was the biggest hurdle and or challenge you faced personally with this project?
Well, there were a few. Like probably the biggest initial one was just the scope needed and the tools required. Again, they weren't tools that, like, I had some familiarity with Voxel Sniper. I'd played with it, but only very rarely on Cubeville, and only in a limited capacity. I'd done a little work cleaning up Halloween Island in 2023, and I'd helped with Uptown, actually, the river and the Skulk Mine area south of CVC Uptown they were artificially created. I had never used GoBrush at all or Go Paint.
Right.
I remember I spoke with Delphi for a quick like briefing on them, and I also watched a couple of videos from Gemini Tay on them. And other than that, I kind of just was going in blind. Hey, what's this do? Oh, it's got a GUI. Just very much, kind of fool around and see what happens. So there was some intimidation because it's like, okay, this is, to call it a server build would be a bit of an exaggeration. There was pressure to make it look very polished and, up to the standard of a, public server.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
was, the first challenge. And then like sort of flowing from that, as things started to pan out and they started to come out well, and I was hyped. I was very happy. And then after a certain point, like I could not have done the whole thing by myself. I had to start to like other people had to come like in and start like designing their individual farms.
Yeah.
And then like, also senior staff, because again, I'm only a SMOD, they had to come in and, deal with the logistical aspects with plenty of heavy overlap. Suddenly here I have to, it's like sending your baby off to school. Suddenly you have to trust
You have to put other people's hand. Yeah.
Yep. So I remember there would occasionally be a little bit of like a personality, like, clash, a little bit of butting heads at first. I remember there were a few people about like, oh, can I tweak this? Can I tweak that? And then like there'd be varying levels of hesitation about, do I trust them? Do they know what they're doing? Like some of them were the ones, like I had seen them work on terraforming. I knew they knew the tools too. So I did end up trusting them.
That is a hard thing, especially as like someone where this is like it is your baby. Like it is kind of like starting point. Like you kind of laid out all the groundwork and did all this. So you have to have people come in and kind of take over, and that can be really scary, definitely, and especially with like just conflicting ideas and visions and what people want to do, and it might not be like what you originally wanted, or something might turn out better, and sometimes that can sting a little. I feel like it definitely is like if you're like, oh, I did all this design, and someone comes in, they're like, well, this is way 1,000 times better, and you have to kind of, you're like, I don't know if this, this actually is better, and I'm kind of annoyed that I didn't think about it. Like there's things like that. Like I feel like there's a lot of things when it comes to being, the head of of designing stuff, where if you're having to work with a team, like collaborative efforts can be really difficult sometimes, because sometimes you just want to be like, here, just let me do it, and other times you just like, I can't do this by myself, kind of thing. So, but I think it definitely worked out in the end.
Yeah, no, like you can't like write a script and set the stage if you're not going to have like, actors come in and bring the roles to life. And so I took the leap. I ended up trusting people, and oh my goodness, it came out, it paid off in dividends. Just the end results. like I'd been saying in the beginning, just the like the passion that was poured into, like for a lot of people, like they have a biome or two that they're just like, that's their, their energy is there, and just like you could just tell that, like,
it really just resonates with them and like their personality and stuff like that.
Like you with the ocean, you've got the coral farm, you've got the guardian farm,
coral,
like I said, Lissa with the jungle, and she's funny, she's all, I hate the jungle, and it's like, but you like the parrots. I think she just built a beautiful home for the parrots. I respect that. MP's Spruce Farm, oh my goodness, it came out just breathtaking. The Spruce Farm and Ice Farm, clearly a little love letter to like the North, British Columbia, absolutely, Canada. Yeah. Sammy and MP there. Oh goodness. Like I said, checks in the mushrooms. I love it.
It's just, it kind of has the pop of everyone's kind of like specialty, and like a little bit of their personality was left in there too, It's like DBC baking. Everyone baked up,
love letter to Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. The mangroves. Yeah, he was just, he was talking about that, and I actually really I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I actually learned something. So it was cool.
And someone I always want to shout out, or maybe two people actually, though I already mentioned another one, but someone I always want to shout out, even though they didn't work on an individual farm, but I just always want to make sure that B&M Bandern Mama there gets some recognition. She handled the logistical side of things.
Absolutely.
Like just handling, setting up the regions, setting up portals, delegating, staff members into different farms as their initial terrain was complete, figuring out boundaries, figuring out blending. She got to do the dirty work, because like here it was about, oh, this, this mod did this, but she can't do this because she's not a mod. And, on top of everything else, like, they're just, more hands better for that kind of thing. Like, so suddenly here you are managing a thing that you were kind of came into sideways, and she hit it out of the park. She did a brilliant job. So
absolutely, I thought it was I was always amazing that all of those like those permissions were. I don't know how my brain would have been spaghetti dealing with like everyone's certain farms being set up with their permissions and everything. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, having to deal with any kind of like personality about, oh, I think this section should look like that. Oh, it should do this, Oh, the roads should cut here, no here, Like she would have had to handle that, and just again, stunning job.
Yeah.
And then again, the second person there would be Wally, who I'd previously mentioned, because he obviously was like the head honcho, the guy on top. It was in his initial, impulse to do this all. He also did the suspicious sand and gravel farm, which again came out glorious. Yeah. So again, just got to shout out the administrative side of things, because like without that, like, it's not glamorous, but it also the glamorous parts don't happen without that.
Right.
I think they're often underappreciated.
Yeah, no, and we're definitely gonna make sure that everyone has like their credits. Definitely gonna make sure. I've been going around like making sure I have everything straight. Like, oh, did this one? Did this one? Does this? So yeah, hopefully we'll have little credits in here at the end of the video, so everyone can see who kind of did what and worked on what. So, but last question for you, Vic. Here for you. Compared to the previous Farmlands, how much larger is this map? Like, is there a specific scale that was larger, or?
That's hard to tell, because the Farmlands are split up into their separate farms in that kind of almost Skylands like formatting, or Skyblock like sort of separate instances, but they do have like a rough influence on the new Farmlands. When I was originally trying to figure out scale, I went and I was just sneaking around in vanish mode, sneaky smod. I went to the current as of this recording, Oak and Birch farm. We'll call it the CV7 one to avoid confusion,
right?
Or the CV6, CV7. I went there. I measured it roughly as best as I could, just in survival mode, kind of puttering around with the World Guard wand, and it looked like from like as the crow flies from one kind of edge to another, it was about 900 blocks long. That's not a good measurement because it's broken up into a lot of chunks, but it was something I could go off of. So I used that to kind of determine, just off of my napkin pitch, how large the rough continent would be. Just figuring that seems to be a good amount of oak and birch wood and clay for the citizens to go through on a daily basis. Very rarely is it fully cleared out or anything. And then so if going off on that 900 block starting point, the Farmlands continent, the new one, ended up I'd say roughly 1,500 blocks square.
Jeez.
Like, obviously it's a crescent, so that's like a rough measurement, but
yeah, but that's a lot.
Yeah, and starting with the 2,000 by 2,000 block just hunk of stone, and then just like shaping it down and up, and kind of carving this land out of it. One big thing that was like a large part of the work that I had to put into shaping the continent was just having to worry about how the land flows into the seabeds. I think that's a really underrated part of making terrain look good, like artificially generated terrain. Like,
it's hard. It's hard in Minecraft with the water physics.
And just like, land needs feet. It doesn't look like it's realistic if it doesn't have feet. Like, I remember when I lived in Hawaii, and just like that feeling of like, oh, this is, when you go to the beach and somehow when you're standing, you can, like, in the water, you can tell this is an island that like came up from the seabed. And then just like having that mentality in mind about, okay, these things need to look like they came up from the earth and like, broke through the surface of the water. So that was why I just like had this 500 block extra kind of lip around it.
Right. Yeah, I remember seeing that in the early development. Yeah, when everything before the water was put in, because that was one of the last things you guys ended up putting in. Even around my farm with coral, mine was boxed in with walls for a little bit with the water, because I had to work with the water underwater, like all underwater stuff, like the coral, the all the green vegetation. Like I had to work with that, and I remember it being boxed off, but like everything else, like outside of that water range was all like lapis, like a lapis ocean as a
Yes.
temporary, as like a temporary block to put in.
It looked good on my mini map, and also, well, haha, funny Vic Lapis. So it worked as a good like visual placeholder. But yeah, oh gosh, I remember that was just a big process. I just had to work clockwise shaping that, and then I went in the middle. So like, poor goat ice cream had to wait very patiently to get to do the oak and birch farm in the
Yeah,
center
that was one of the
because
last
I,
ones too, right?
yep. And then also, and then Sammy with the ice farm, same issue because again in the center. MP with oak and or whoops with a spruce as well. And then because like I hadn't initially planned too much for a separate island, and then I had to go back and incorporate it, so checks had to wait a while. Oh gosh, and by this point, I think Fred was already done with the acacia farm. And that was, and you were pretty close to done with like terracotta, so like
Yeah.
I feel a bit bad that like there was a little bit of that stagger because of my just need to like, you know, shape things like kind of on the fly. And again, B&M like being able to handle that, like people coming in and out of the project really helped with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just this one wandered a little bit, but hopefully
You're
it got
good.
back to its
You're
point.
good. You're
Just having to think of things as one big solid versus like a lot of separate little floating islands like made that kind of translating the scale of the old farmlands to the new ones like it kind of like spiced up that process, but I think it worked out well. And again, the oak and birch farm, just to go back and pick on it, like it should be roughly the same dimensions as the CV6 CV7 oak birch farm, but it should have a lot more oak and birch in it, and clay in the rivers. Don't forget the clay.
Oh yeah. Ugh.
So
I always
that's
find it
worked out.
annoying getting the clay, but like, you know, at the same time, at least thankfully it's there, so I don't have to go looking for it anywhere in the actual world. But
Gotta
I
buy
think
scuba.
the oh yeah, no,
Scuba
I
and Aqua
absolutely
Affinity.
need to get scuba. But yeah, no, like I remember seeing the birch one kind of being empty for a while, and we had it as the wool color because early in development, we'll show some pictures. Early in development, we had it as like everything was separated into like different colors of wool and stuff like that, and it looked like a rainbow island.
Yeah.
While we were still
And
kind of figuring it out.
I remember, and there were already memes amongst the staff team about, oh, look at Vic with her early builds, wool and sponge, and that didn't help matters.
Like everyone has their like little framing blocks that they use. I use concrete, like orange concrete for all of mine. I mean, certain people just kind of like find it easy to frame stuff with. But it was just really interesting seeing, like, it was just like, oh man, this has really got to transform by the time we drop this map. Like, oh, like it was just daunting seeing that at first, right?
Yeah, it doesn't help that when it's just plain stone or just magenta wool, you know, the initial terraforming, it's often hard to see like mistakes, especially because when you're using like something like voxel sniper, like we're talking like at times I was using like just 200 radius brushes. It was nuts. It was like a sledgehammer, and then like here you are with this sledgehammer trying to shape things, but then like, you know, players are 2 meters tall, they're walking around in this world, so you got to go back in with like a carving knife and clean things up afterwards.
Yeah, you really gotta like come back in and really sculpt it. And I think one tool that I really was so thankful for, but I didn't know how to use, I had to learn. But one tool was like the Go Paint. Was it called Go Paint, right? Or was it with Go Brush?
The feather?
Yeah.
Yep, that's Go Paint.
Go Paint. Like I was so thankful for that one because it let me do the disc coloration in the terracotta farm. It allowed me to actually kind of put in the mesa look, so you can actually have those different colors just one line thick, but actually go through the entire mountain. So I didn't have to, like, I've made the disc like 50 blocks wide, but like it was only 1 block tall, so you could actually just kind of like right click on the mountain and follow it along the line, and it would just make everything, like it would just paint it over. So that was really nice. Those tools were so useful. I had no idea how to use them, so I was freaking out at first. I was like, I don't know what tools I was like, can I have these tools? And they're like, sure. I was like, wait, I don't know how to use them. But you know, learned that they were really useful. Couldn't have done it without a lot of those tools.
Oh yeah, well, I remember we had like a quick terraforming school, and that was fun. But yeah, no, Go Brush is nice. It was wonderful not having to juggle just like 7 different world edit brushes. for like masking and just like replacing blocks and stuff, because it just like is able, like, it might be a one-trick pony, but it does that one trick so well. It streamlines so much work.
Yeah, 100%. And we got a lot of people to get fun, like into terraforming, so there's that too.
Yes, it's so nice. From what I understand,
Little
there's
minions.
not been a terrible amount of terraforming like culture on CV before. Like old school essays were like, we're talking CV5 and before, were apparently a bit intimidated of such tools, and then like often they just didn't exist yet. And then like, goodness, from there, from what I understand, for a long time it was just a few of the essays, 2 or 3. Say in Delph and P-Town come to mind, before P-Town retired, and that was it. About like, you know, they're already swamped their essays. They're doing whatever essays do, which seems to be everything. So poor dears. So you know, they can't stop and just build a continent. So now, like, you know, in this day and age, you know, you can wrestle up like, okay, I need some smods, I need some admins, mods, you know, let's go build a continent.
Let's do it. We did.
Yeah, it's amazing. We could just do that now.
Right. Well, I think that's all we have time for now. Do you have anything to wrap up? Any closing remarks, Vic? Anything you'd like to say before you go?
Goodness, I hope that the nubs enjoy it. I hope the citizens enjoy it. That's, you know, if like, you know, we put months of work into it, we put tons of love into it, but like, if it doesn't like function as a farm, if the citizens like, you know, hopefully they're getting value out of it, like, you know, that's the whole idea. It needs to serve them. That's like the whole idea of like providing these, you know, resource worlds, these farmlands. So, you know, fingers crossed it does that. Hopefully everybody loves it. Hopefully that kind of open world feel, you can explore it. I feel like there's going to be some nub that decides they just live there, just a nomad lifestyle. I respect it. I hope they have fun. And again, just go out there, gather, explore, have fun.
All right. Well, thank you, Vic, for taking the time to answer these questions. We'll get hopefully get this video out in the next couple days, and we'll have everyone will be excited to see some of the new farmland stuff, because I think there's going to be some pictures and fly-throughs and stuff like that they haven't seen for yet. So that's going to be cool.
Ooh, nice. Oh, I hope they love it.
All right. Well, thank you, Vic. Appreciate you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. You too.